ni sa re ma ga sa ni sa re ma ga sa ni sa ni sa re ga ni sa re ma ga ni sa re ma pa ma ga re pa ma ga re ma ga re ga sa ma pa ni sa re ga sa re ma pa ni ma pa sa pa ma pa ni sa pa sa pa ga ma ga re ma pa ni sa pa ma ga re ga re ma ga sa re ga sa ma pa ni sa re ga sa ga 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 ma ga ma ga ma ga re re ga re sa ni sa re ga ma ga re sa ma ga re ga re sa ni sa re ga ma ga re sa ni sa re ni sa da ni re re ga ma pa re ga ma ni da pa ma ga ma ga re sa ni sa re ga ma ga re sa ni sa re ni sa da ni re ga ma ra ni sa ni da ga ma ga re sa ni da pa ma ga re sa ni sa da ni pa re re ga ma ra ni re da ga ma ga re ni sa re ga ma pa ga ma re ga re sa re ni sa da ga ni re ga re sa. Music is universal. In the sense, every culture in the world has its own music. But the nature of the music itself and musical thought or musical discourse, how you speak about music, that is far from identical. One might venture the idea that while, for instance, members of a tribe or a rural community may not think or talk about their music in conceptual terms or offer concepts and categories to talk about the music or even teach it. That is, music exists purely as a performance tradition in many communities. But classical traditions must have such literature. One of the markers of classical music traditions is that the music is codified. That is, it's organized in terms of basic categories. And we use these categories to talk about it, to discourse about it, even teach it. Now, if music is Shastriya, as we saw earlier, it's a body of rules, then these rules have to be cast in terms of general categories. And two such fundamental categories in the context of Indian music, in the context of Hindustani music, as far as melody goes, is the two fundamental categories are Swara and Shruti. Swara, which is notes, and Shruti, which is microtones. We speak of music in these terms, we teach it, and we have textual discussions of music using these categories. We have textual discussions of these categories and with these categories. Right? And these discussions are over 2 millennia old. So we have quite an ancient history, not just of musical practice or musical traditions as performance, but also musical thought. Now, most of you would know that what I sang in the beginning were swaras, right? Notes. In fact, I sang some notes, some phrases of the ragas Tilak Kamod, followed by Jai Jaivanti. These are the two ragas, notes and phrases of those ragas that I sang. So, ragas at a very fundamental, at a very basic level, are constituted of swaras or notes or tones. And so, the first step towards understanding raga, this raga sangeet and raga, is to understand, to study, to know about the swaras. So, what is swara? So, we have two things here, right? Swara as a category and swaras as notes, the actual notes that we sing. And it's always easier to talk about the specifics, right? The particulars, that is swaras, notes. What are the notes? And all of you would know we have 7 swaras, right? So we have 7 swaras. Sa, that's the first. Sa, sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, da, ni. These are the 7 swaras. And beyond that, you all know, comes the next sa, right? Sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, sa, ni, dha, pa, ma, ga, ri, sa. That was the ascending swaras and a descending set of swaras. And beyond that lie the same set of swaras, the higher region and the lower region. So you have sa, ni, da, pa, and so on. Sa, ri, ga, and so on. So this is the first set of categories that, first set of concepts that you need to know. First, the swaras, of course, the pitches, and you have the sa, which is the base, the adhara, the foundation of all music. And all music refers and gets meaning from the sa, which we will see in a later video. That never changes during a performance, right? Unlike other music like Western music, where the tonic can change in a certain piece. The tonic never changes for us. The sa remains the same throughout a performance, throughout many years for many performers. So, so that is the adhara, sa, adhara swara, the foundational note with reference to which all music makes sense. Every other note is fixed with reference to this sa. And then you have the rest, the 6 other swaras. Now, between the sa and the ni, sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, da, ni. This is called the madhya sap. This is called the saptak, a set of 7 swaras. And this is also the middle 7, right? The middle range. And you have sa, ni, dha, pa, so ni, dha, pa, and so on. That forms the mandra or the lower register, and the higher register is upwards of the higher sa. So therefore we define, we have 3 registers, we can call it. We call it saptak, madhya, which is the basic, the middle range, and then you have the mandra, and then you have the tara. And a typical Hindustani khayal vocalist would have a range from the lower part to the higher part, so a range of 2 octaves. It could be a wider range or a lesser range, but this is a typical range of 2 octaves. So then we have the saptak, right, the set of 7 swaras, but we all know that anybody who has taken a look at a keyboard or a harmonium, you know that between one sa and the next sa you have 12 pitches, not just 7. So actually we have the total number of swaras is 7 plus 5 variants. So there are 12 pitches between 12 musically useful pitches, I must say. There are actually infinite pitches between any 2 pitches. Theoretically, physics will tell you. In theory, infinite pitches are there between any 2 pitches, and definitely between sa, sa. You have many pitches, but what we use in music is primarily 12. There are 12 pitches, and this we speak of as 7 Shuddha Swaras and 5 Vikrita Swaras, or 5 variants. And in contemporary Hindustani music, these are the Shuddha Swaras, what I just sang, corresponding to the major scale. Sari Gama Padani. These are the Shuddha Swaras. With sa, if this is the sa, then these are the Shuddha Swaras. And five of these notes, Riga, Ma, Dhani, they have a variant each. So what we have are actually 12 swaras that we use. They constitute the basic tonal material. Besides the Shuddha Swaras, we have Komal and Tivra Swaras. Komal Swaras are flatter, lower than the Shuddha Swara, and Tivra is higher than the Shuddha Swara. And this is the scheme. These are the 12 Swaras. Sa, of course, Re Komal, Re Shuddha, Ga Komal, Ga Shuddha, Ma Shuddha, Ma Tivra, Pa, Dha Komal, Dha Shuddha, Ni Komal, Ni Shuddha. So this is as I said, the 12 tone system that we have in Western music. It's something quite similar to it. Now I'll quickly demonstrate the pitches. Many of you would already know it, but so this is the Adhar. Sa, Re. This is a Shuddha Re, right? Shuddha Rushabh. Sa, Re, Sa, Re. This is the Komal Rushabh, which is lower than the Shuddha Rushabh. Then again, Ga. This is the Shuddha Gandhar. Ga. Komal Gandhar. Again, Komal Gandhar is lower than the Shuddha Gandhar. Ma, Shuddha Ma, Ma. This is the Tivra Madhyam. Pa. And so also for Dha and Ni. Da, Shuddha Da. Dha, Komal Dha. Ni, Shuddha Ni. Ni. So these are the 12 pitches, 12 swaras. It's quite difficult to sing all these 12 pitches. Like we sing the seven swaras. To sing the 12 swaras would be quite a feat, because they are very closely placed. So it will be like sa, re, re, ga, ga. I can't do it. So you have to practice separately for it. So we speak of 7 swaras and their 5 variants. 7 Shuddha Swara, right? We call it Shuddha, means pure, uncontaminated. But it really doesn't have any such significance in when we speak of Shuddha Swara. It is just that we identify these as the primary swaras and the others as the variant. And this is completely arbitrary, in the sense that is how it has evolved, and there is nothing necessary or natural about it. In fact, centuries ago, there was another set of swaras that were designated Shuddha. In fact, even today, Shuddha swaras of Carnatic music are a completely different set. So, just as a matter of identifying or talking about these 12 swaras, we say that these 7 are Shuddha and they have their variants. So, this is a matter of choice, cultural choice, that has evolved and has been defined over centuries. The way we choose to organize and name the basic stuff of music. So, Riga, Dhani and Ma, right? Riga, Dhani have a komal variety, Ma has a Tibra or the sharper, augmented variety. And how about Sa and Pa? Sa and Pa don't have any variants, right? So, the right word they are called achala. Achala means it doesn't move, it's fixed. Now, we will see later on that though we speak of 12 pitches, 12 swaras as pitch positions, when we actually use them in ragas, there is nothing fixed about it. There are very subtle variations. So even though we say Shuddhari, the exact pitch may vary very subtly, depending on the raga, depending on the phrase, depending on the ornament that we use. And this is equally applicable to Sa and Pa. So subtle variations, microtonal variations are possible even for Sa and Pa. So, in fact, the Drupad tradition of the Dagar family, I was just speaking to a master, and he says, we don't regard Sa and Pa as achala. And it is true. As a matter of fact, they are not immovable. There are very subtle variations, just as we have in the case of the other swaras. So the right word for Sa and Pa would be avikrita. That is, they don't have variants. Like there is no komal pancham or tivra pancham. We don't have it. We have only one pancham, just as we have only one shadja. But microtonal variations are very much there, just as they are there for other swaras. So this takes us to the next category, next concept, in terms of which we talk of melody. This is Shruti. Shruti, which is generally translated as microtone. Okay, so what is microtone? I'll demonstrate it. That's the best way to talk. Sa, re, re, which is the next pitch. After Sa, we have Komal Rishabh. That's the next swara or flat Rishabh. Sa, re, sa. So this is the next swara, right? Sa, re. But between these two, and there are no other swaras between Sa and Komal Rishabh. But there are microtones, there are Shrutis. Sa, right? Now I will try to hit a pitch between these two. That was not quite Komal Rishabh all the way. It was not Sa, of course. So that Sa, Re, that is a Shruti. That's that particular pitch, you can call it as a Shruti. In fact, the difference, the interval is also sometimes called the Shruti. But needless to say, we don't use Shruti in such a crude manner. I am just demonstrating it for conveying what Shruti is. In practice, it's used in very subtle ways, so that you don't discern that there was a microtonal variation. So within ragas and within phrases, all swaras, any swara moves subtly. There are microtonal variations, and this is what we refer to as Shruti. Tradition, the textual tradition, says that we have 22 such Shrutis, 22 microtones. That is, while we have 12 swaras, there are subtler and more minute pitch intervals, and these are 22 in number. So this number 22 was advanced by Bharata in his very remarkable text, Natya Shastra, which was sometime around the 2nd to 4th century of the Common Era. And this he advanced this number on the basis of an empirical experiment. You can really look it up on the internet, what exactly the experiment was. And he said that there are 22 pitches, and it was as I said, it's empirical in the sense it is just what he was able to discern. He said, okay, now this is one pitch, and then he tightened it a little more. As you know, if you tighten the string, the pitch increases, right? So he said that as he tightened little by little, he could, as he discerned a different pitch, he counted the number of pitches he was able to hear, and he arrived at 22. Now this is not contested. Okay, we have about 2 millennia, or at least 15 centuries of such discussions of musical concepts and the music itself in various texts from various regions of the country, in various languages indeed. We have Sanskrit, Persian and other languages. With this 22, the number of 22 is largely uncontested. No later theorist said, no, it's not 22. Actually, I can hear 24, or no, it's just 18 or something like that. This isn't contested. But in fact, in the text, in the textual traditions, these 22 pitches are distributed over over the 7 basic pitches. So typically we have sa, ma and pa with 4 shrutis. They're supposed to have 4 shrutis each, and ri and dha have 3 each, and ga and ni have 2 each. So you have 22 pitches. But you see, in practice, in the performance tradition, these numbers, the quantification of Shruti is not relevant. Shruti is a matter of great importance, and nobody denies the reality of microtonal nuancing in the performance tradition, and we all practice it. Teachers impart it, and performers are very sensitive to it. But the actual numbers, that is not of concern in the performance tradition. So while Shruti is very much a reality in that microtonality is found extensively in the performances of this music, the 22 Shruti idea, that there are 22 Shrutis, does not carry much weight in practice. So this is how the musical material, or the basic stuff of music, is organized in Hindustani music. Right? You have 7 Shuddha Swaras, or sometimes it's also called Prakrita Swaras, and then 5 Vikrita Swaras, of which 4 are Komal and 1 is Tibra, and you have Shrutis, microtones, which, as I said, according to theory are 22 in number, but practice doesn't concern itself with the number of microtones. Now, the important idea emerging from this discussion is that swara is not a single pitch. It's not a particular frequency, especially within a raga. For exercise, for just initiating a person into the music, of course, they are fixed positions. But once you enter into the music itself, swara is more of an oral space, and subtly different pitches get lit up during performance.